for deferral. Mr. Greenberg's been in contact with my clients constantly and been talking to them, knowing full well about this application, this appeal that we've made. And here we are with all these people here who've come from Spring Garden, people who work on the river, people like Grace Solaris, neighbors. Yeah, raise your hands. Just all those who are here on this item. They've taken time out of their day, out of their evening to be here and to have the applicant come here at the last minute and say, oh, my attorney's out of town. Well, you know, when I'm out of town, I will tell. And you all have heard when I've been out of town and my clients have come and asked and the other side has said okay. But that's because I gave warning to my opposite side. I haven't even heard from his attorney. I'm of record. His attorney should know that I'm the applicant's attorney and I'm the appellant's attorney, and he could have very easily, or she could have very easily called me and said I'm going to be out of town. We object for those reasons.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is true. I was constantly talked to the other side, and I was told, Josh, several days ago, we will not be ready because my attorney out of town. And I told to the city. Yeah, I was in New York. I came especially for this.
Okay, all right.
This meeting,
speak to us.
Yeah, I was in New York. I came especially because I was told by the city somebody must be physical present here to ask for deferral. That's why I came here to ask.
Mr. Chairman, Section 7.1.4.5, subsection E of Miami 21 specifically states that the applicant shall have the right to one continuance.
Is the applicant the appellant, or is
Hold
the
on,
applicant
Mr.
the
Gibbs.
appellee? Oh, I'm sorry.
Hold on. That's my question I was going to ask. Is the applicant the appellant or the actual applicant?
Miami 21 says the applicant.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Gibbs?
I just want to ask the question to you, if I could.
What's the question?
The question is, I'm an applicant under Miami 21 because I filed an application and a request for an appeal. I've always been treated as an applicant when I've done it. That's why I...
Okay, give me 1 second. Mr. City Attorney, who's the applicant tonight?
I am.
1 second, sir, please.
Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney.
I'm looking for the definition of Miami 21. If you give me 1 moment, please. Miami 21 does not define applicant. I would suggest that the applicant is based on the application. The application was for the warrant. So it is my opinion that the applicant would be the individual that applied for the warrant.
So tonight the gentleman is the applicant?
Correct. Mr. Gibbs is the appellant, not
Thank
the
you.
applicant.
So tonight is, okay. So, all right, Mr. Gibbs, that's it. No, that's it. No more questions. We've heard that. I'm going to open it up to the board. Close it and open it to the board. Mr.
This issue's come up before, and I remember it was either 1 or 2 meetings ago where we actually made a change so that the applicant may request a deferral, but it's completely up to this board, given the circumstances. This is what I remember as to whether we grant it. Is that anybody else's recollection of what we...
I think it's always up to us whether we grant it or not.
No, but that specific issue of this, whether they have an automatic right to one, was what we discussed at length, I think 2 meetings ago.
Right, but I don't think it was an automatic. It was a consideration may.
May.
Right, yes,
We
sir.
changed it from automatic
Yes.
to may.
Yes, yes.
Remember exactly the same, that it doesn't have to be necessarily granted.
I'm not 100% sure, but I also, I'm just worried that, I'm personally not inclined to grant it, but the conversation I thought was that we were maybe made a motion to ask that rule be revisited and clarified. And I'm not sure whether we, at the time, had the authority to actually change it because it would be amending the code or changing the code. So I wasn't sure if we were putting that in as a request to look at that or whether it actually happened at the meeting. It's something we probably need to know now.
Mr. Ziegler?
My thought is he entitled to it or not? I mean, under the code for what he just read, he is. So
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter almost what we do.
Historically, the applicants that have come before us have usually received the benefit to at least one continuance. So,
the-
if nobody else has any comments,
I
would
do.
like-
I mean,
Ms. Gutierrez.
no.
I'm actually surprised that the applicant in an appeal is not the appellant. So this is an appeal. The one that's driving this buggy, and the reason we're here is because of the appellant. So this is very confusing to me.
Don't do that.
Okay, so, Mr. City Attorney, I would like to take a vote from the board members on this.
And just, if I may, Mr. Chairman, to address one of the comments that was made as far as the shall being changed to may, that was addressed by the Planning, Zoning, and Appeals Board. However, that language has not been adopted by the City Commission as of yet.
Okay. So, do we need to make a motion to take a vote on this? Or can we just,
I'm hearing some division amongst the board members, so I think it may be prudent to,
right, but does there need to be a motion? Either way.
there should be some direction.
Something.
presented.
So, Ms. Gutierrez, would you like to, or
May I-
someone?
Mr. Chair, just for a second, could you just read the exact language one more time, just so we can all hear it?
Again, it's section 7.1.4.5, subsection E of Miami 21. The applicant shall have the right to one continuance.
So,
Would you consider both parties applicants in this matter?
As I've stated before, I believe the applicant is the individual that applies for the warrant. Mr. Gibbs is representing I assume the neighbors, and is the appellant, not the applicant.
As a matter, it was a technical sort of thing here, is your opinion right now unofficial? How are we to interpret what you are interpreting right now? Or how are we to use what you are interpreting right now?
That is my interpretation. There is a provision in Miami 21. This is language that is coming out of Miami 21.
Okay.
There is a provision in Miami 21 that says the zoning administrator shall have the right to interpret any provision of Miami 21. So if this board wants to ask the zoning administrator what applicant means, since it is a term used in Miami 21, I'm sure he can.
Can we get him on the horn?
I don't know why he's not here.
Okay.
no, okay.
I mean, no, because, I mean, are we going to end up, someone going to make a motion that we're trying to interpret that here and now without the zoning administrator? Or it sounds like we actually really just need to ask the zoning administrator for a call on this before we even vote?
I'm assuming the speakerphone works next to Ms. Ellis, if you want her to attempt to call him on the speakerphone.
I mean, I'm hesitant.
Yeah,
I mean, he's the authority, I mean,
I think,
I don't know we're doing the right thing.
I think we need to tackle that at another time, but we need to entertain what's before us right now in the abundance of time. Does anyone want to make a motion either way?
I just have one more question. Can we make a provision that who you deem as the applicant has to pay for renoticing the public? I know it's typically not their role, it would be the appellant, but is that a possibility here?
That would be an amendment to Chapter 62 of the City Code, because that is currently not a requirement.
Okay,
So if that is
so no.
once this is done, if the board wants to pass a resolution recommending that the city consider amending Chapter 62, that's certainly something.
But it's not something we could add as a condition to this decision?
I would,
No.
if there's going to be, if he wants to volunteer, that's one way to address it, but I don't believe it can be a mandate.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
How long has been your attorney out of town?
He'll be ready next month. He'll be ready next month.
How many days?
He's out of town like almost several days.
Several days.
Yes. As soon as I find out, I notify both sides, the city and the...
And he couldn't request a deferral several days ago, so all these people wouldn't be here.
I asked city, sir, and I was told somebody must be present here to ask for deferral. That's why I came, because I sent an email to the city I talked to like several days ago, sir, as soon as I find out.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion on this?
I'd like some,
If I can ask just one more question of the city attorney. Mr. Mims, like, I mean, obviously all the people are here, obviously and my position is, they should be heard, and it's sort of, one of these things like, though what he's doing may be necessarily, you might disagree, but does he have the legal right to do it? So that's what I'm sort of torn of. Like, in other words, if everything we do here, if it's not correct, if he's entitled to it and he appeals it or whatever the process is, do we have to start over again? That's my only thing. I mean, I just need some, is this right or not? Is he entitled to it or he isn't? I mean, that's just what the bottom line is. If he is, so I'm just asking, for the city attorney at least to give us something to say yes or no. He's entitled or he isn't.
Again, Miami 21 says the applicant shall be entitled to one
Right.
continuance.
So he's entitled to it.
but we don't know
shall
that
is a
until the
mandate. It's not
zoning
permissible.
administrator gives us a definition, or makes a
Well,
call.
but historically, the issue that Ms. Torrance, you want to say something?
I do. Can the city let me know when they first heard from the applicant that they were going to want a deferral?
I received a phone call from the applicant on Monday.
On Monday. Mr. Gibbs, when did you receive notification?
From the city, I have not received notification from the city.
And you received nothing from the,
I've received absolutely nothing from the applicant or his attorney. And by the way, I'd like to know who his attorney is so I could actually talk to the person.
You will.
Yeah, I don't have any idea who your attorney
You will.
is. Who is your attorney?
Kendall Coffee.
Who?
Kendall Coffee.
Okay, I'll give Kendall a call because I'll give him a
Mr.
call.
Ziegler.
I'll give Mr. Coffey a call tomorrow.
Okay,
This is,
If we go
Couple
through
more
this, are we
comments?
going through all this? No, I'm just saying, are we going to go through all this and then have to go through it again? That's all I'm saying. If he's entitled to it, I don't necessarily like it, and I think it's short notice, but if he's entitled to it, what are we doing? He's entitled, He asked, and that's the way it is. It's unfortunate that the people are here, but, no sense in going through this and then have to go through it again down the road if he appeals or his attorney says, hey, you're violating my rights. That's all I'm saying. I mean, to me, that's my only thing.
no, 1 second, Mr. Parrish.
Just a couple of comments, because, first of all, I think because this issue has come up before and over, Mr. Mims, I would very much like it if this was made a high priority, at least to get to the commission, and if they don't want to change this particular part of Miami 21, then they don't have to, but at least we'll get a ruling on it.
Yes, sir. I assume that comment, of course, is directed at the administration, which can follow up.
All right, well, somebody should follow up. And the second thing is, it's been a long time since I was in law school, but an abuse of the law, of the letter of the law, if I recall correctly, sometimes removes the ability to rely on the law because the equities get involved, and the equities might very well make this board go another direction and say that in the interest of law, that we should hear this. But it's been, like I say, it's been a long time. You're our attorney, but I'm just saying to have probably 50 people in this audience who came down to hear this and to have such a really weak excuse for not notifying everyone that, so they don't have to come down is really pretty outrageous, in my opinion. So one way or another,
All right,
we have
okay.
one way or another, we have to get this
Is it Mr. Gersten?
solved for the future.
Mr. Gersten, go ahead with your motion.
I'd like
Mr.
to
Chair, I
make,
need to say
No,
something on the
Mr.
record.
Tucker, that's
I'd
it.
like to make a motion that this board finds that the applicant in this matter is the applicant that has brought this matter before this board at this time. They filed an application.
what is your motion?
For an appeal, well, that we are finding that this is an appeal, that the appellant is the applicant, and in this case, they are the ones who must get one continuance, and if they are not taking it, we must go forward.
So what is your motion?
That
To
was it.
deny the request from the
To
applicant.
deny the request on the basis that.
Okay, so
that-
Mr.
that
Gersten-
the applicant in this matter is the appellant. That's it.
Right, against the interpretation of the city attorney. Okay.
Against the,
So-
the current,
Right,
yes,
okay, so Mr. Gersten has a motion to deny the deferral. Is there a second?
on that basis.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gutierrez. Roll call, please.
Please let the record reflect that Mr. Manuel Vadillo is now present. Mr. Adam Gersten,
Yes.
Ms. Betty Gutierrez,
Yes.
Mr. Andres Altabe,
Yes.
Mr. Chris Collins,
No.
Mr. Anthony Parrish,
Yes.
Mr. Juvenal Pena.
I'm last.
I'm sorry?
I'm last. I'm last.
Oh, I'm sorry. Miss Melody Torrance,
Yes.
Mr. Manuel Vadillo,
I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Aaron Ziegler,
No.
and Mr. Juvenal Pena.
No.
Motion passes 5-3.
Okay, so we're going to hear the item, sir.
I'm sorry?
We are going to hear the item.
But I'm not ready. I have no papers, nothing.
Well,
So what do you want me to do?
Can I just ask the city attorney, does going forward this item put whatever conclusion we determine at risk of being overturned at a later date?
I don't want to speak for what I consider the applicant. Obviously, someone else believes someone else is the applicant. But I would assume if this board decides in favor of the appellant, then the applicant would appeal to the city commission. And one of the arguments at the city commission would be the PZAB failed to follow the provisions of Miami 21.
I think this is a
For that.
risky move going forward.
well, the board voted on it, so we got to go based on that. So, appellant, Mr. Gibbs,
Yes. Ready?
you may start your presentation.
Okay, so there'll be no presentation from staff? Okay.
Staff, one moment, please.
Yeah.
Staff,
Good evening. This is Derek Cook with the Planning Department. Staff presentation is that we recommend that the appeal be denied.
based on what, Mr. Cook? I mean, can you be more elaborate on that?
Based on the findings set forth in the approval with conditions by the Planning and Zoning Department for the warrant, if you wish, I will read the conditions into record.
Yes.
Condition number 1 was the proposed outside dining shall be in accordance with the plans entitled Anchor Marine as prepared from the group consisting of 10 pages dated June the 13th, 2016, signed and sealed on May the 2nd, 2017. That the extension of the public sidewalk fronting the subject properties on the east turning south to create a continuous public access and shown on sheet A-102 of the plans entitled Anchor Marine as prepared by a form group consisting of 10 pages dated June the 13th, 2016, signed and sealed on May the 2nd, 2017. In cooperation with Public Works Department, the redevelopment of the abandoned boat ramp at the south side of the subject property is required. The applicant must incorporate landscaping to enhance the experience for public use of the riverfront as shown in sheet A-102 of the plans entitled, Anchor Marine, as prepared by form group consisting of 10 pages dated June the 13th, 2016, signed and sealed on May the 2nd, 2017. The applicant must obtain approval of the revocable license agreement by Miami City Commission. The landscape plan as reviewed and approved by the Planning Department and any other applicable agencies shall be as shown on the plans. A minimum of 1 boat slip must remain available for commercial fishing vessels. A minimum of one boat slip must remain available and clearly designated for law enforcement, city marine patrol vessels. Signage is not a part of this warrant application and shall be reviewed under a separate permit application. Any noise generated on site shall conform with Chapter 36 of the City Code noise regulation. It shall be unlawful to play or operate music boxes, jukeboxes, radios, musical instruments, or any other musical devices on or about the premises between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. the following days, unless said music devices are played or operated in an enclosed building and the sound is not audible from the outside of the building so as to disturb the quiet, comfort, or repose of persons in any dwelling, hotel, or other type of residence. Any concerns or complaints related to the noise nuisance will be addressed and resolved immediately. Failure to comply with the conditions herein shall result in the revocation of this warrant.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appellant?
Good evening. My name is Tucker Gibbs. I have law offices at 3835 Utopia Court in Coconut Grove. And tonight, I'm here representing Harry K. Bender, who lives directly across the Miami River from the property subject to this warrant, and the Spring Garden Civic Association. My clients are appealing a warrant that approves a 230-seat outdoor restaurant directly across the river from their homes. This restaurant would replace an existing marine industrial use within a protected marine industrial area along the Miami River. And the law is clear. A development order such as a warrant must conform with the city's comprehensive plan. And a warrant also must comply with the city's zoning code, which is Miami 21, including the intent of the transect here, the D3 waterfront industrial transect, and also the manner in which the proposed use will operate given its location and, very importantly, its proximity to less intense uses. The approval of this warrant is contrary to the directive in the comprehensive plan to protect and foster the expansion of waterfront industrial uses, which is also known as the working waterfront, within the port of the Miami River. Now, the property subject to the warrant is included in the port of the Miami River. So objective PA 3.1 of the comprehensive plan states that the city shall protect the Miami River from encroachment by non-water dependent and non-water related land uses. The comprehensive plan also requires the city to encourage and maintain the working waterfront, discourage incompatible uses, encourage the expansion of the Port of Miami River working waterfront, encourage development of the Port of the Miami River that is compatible with existing industrial uses of the property within the Port of the Miami River. The warrant does none of these. It allows a commercial restaurant use thinly disguised as water dependent that in reality discourages the working waterfront industrial uses described in the comprehensive plan, and it also discourages the expansion of the working waterfront and discourages development compatible with the existing marine and industrial uses allowed there. This warrant encourages the erosion of the marine industrial uses along the river. If you approve this warrant, another industrially zoned property in the Port of the Miami River will be effectively removed. This warrant approves the continuing transformation of a vibrant working river into a commercial restaurant destination. And please note, the types of uses permitted in the industrial land use do not include restaurants. The proposed restaurant use does not follow the intent of the industrial transect, the zoning code in Miami 21. According to Miami 21, the industrial transect is intended to encompass land use functions connected with business activities involving manufacturing, fabrication, assembly, distribution, disposal, warehousing, etc., but it doesn't say anything about restaurants. The marine industrial establishment definition, which is cited in the warrant, talks about uses in the industrial transect include a facility conducting activities associated with the construction, repair, operation, storage, and unloading of boats. and other activities, the primary purpose of which is to facilitate the maritime industry. That's important to note. The primary purpose. All work on vessels which exceed 8 feet in width and body work and major engine work and overhaul shall be considered marine-related industrial activity, not limited to shipping, boatyards, marinas, commercial, fishing, container yards, and tugboats. But it doesn't include the word restaurant. It doesn't include that use. That's what's missing here. The 230-seat outdoor restaurant described in and approved through this warrant does not seek to serve the adjacent and nearby marine industrial uses. This restaurant, like many others along the river, is better suited for a commercial area. And you'll hear tonight testimony about restaurants on the river and their impact on the residential communities that are nearby. This warrant presents nothing to show how it will operate given its location and proximity to less intense residential uses. What it does show is that the 230-seat restaurant will need more than 3 spaces, because that's what's on site. But the code says modifications of off-street parking may be approved by waiver, and that waiver may be conditioned on safeguards that reduce the degree of nonconformity to the extent reasonably feasible in the circumstances of the case. While they cite this section in the warrant, nobody explains how any safeguards are reducing any degree of nonconformity. They just say, this section applies, and we're going to give them a waiver. And the warrant, which includes the waiver, provides nothing that shows how the waiver relieves practical difficulties in complying with the strict requirements of the code as required by the waiver provisions in Miami 21. So while the warrant recognizes that this outdoor restaurant will include amplified music and will clearly generate noise, the warrant provides little, if any, protection for the nearby residential neighbors, except that noise shall conform with the city noise regulations, and then, and you heard it, adds as a condition that they abide by the regulations. And they then quote in these conditions. I don't understand that. It's already the law. The Miami code provisions relating to noise already apply to this property. Why do you put it as a condition? It doesn't mean anything. It's already a requirement. So what they're saying is, no, you know what? They can make as much noise as they want as long as they meet the city code. And if you're a resident and you want to get to sleep and there are people shooting off fireworks and there's noise and the bass playing really deeply and somebody's boat docked at this restaurant, or the restaurant, because it's an outdoor restaurant, is blasting music, well, call code enforcement. And they may come the next day, and that's just a little too late. And that's the concern here. This warrant does not fulfill the intent of the Miami River Corridor urban infill plan for this East Little Havana neighborhood. That plan states that the restaurants as accessory uses only, maintaining the requirement for a primary water-dependent use. And that's the important thing, because that's what Miami 21 says. If you're going to do something, the primary use has to be water-dependent. And that's what the Miami River infill plan says as well. This plan, and it says for a primary water-dependent use, and it should be allowed along the river. They say this should be allowed along the river as long as it's a secondary use to a primary waterfront, water-dependent use. But there's nothing in the warrant that addresses if it's consistent with the Miami River Corridor infill plan, as we said. There's certainly no showing that the restaurant here is subordinate to a primary water-dependent use. The water-dependent use that's described in the warrant is a storage facility downstairs and a charter business upstairs, or a yacht brokerage, where you can get on the phone and you call around, you get a boat to come in, and they leave their stuff downstairs, they get on the boat, and then they leave. And it can't be water dependent. Even if you consider that to be a legitimate water dependent use, that can't be water dependent because it's not a primary use. It's in the smaller of the two buildings. It's a smaller square footage. So you can't say that it is primary when it is smaller. What's driving that train is the restaurant. It's not the guy on the phone calling the boat to come in and pick up people who want to charter it and their storage. So this brings us back to the beginning. that this warrant is contrary to the comprehensive plan directive, that the city shall protect the Miami River from encroachment by non-water dependent and non-water related uses. This warrant fails to meet this fundamental requirement, and we urge you to grant the appeal and reject the warrant.
Thank you. Applicant? Did the applicant leave? Did he leave? Is he out there? Can somebody check, see if he's out there in the lobby? Is somebody checking out there?
There's going to be public comment.
There will be public comment, but I want to see the applicant is here.
Can I
He's
reboot,
gone?
Mr. Chair?
Is he gone? Mr. Cook?
Mr. Chair, thank you, and board members. Derek Cook with the Planning Department. As Mr. Tucker stated, he had made some questions in related to the warrant as it is germane to its coordination with the land use amendment, the comprehensive plan. So if you may have read in your package, the warrant is allowed in this D3. This use is allowed through the warrant process. As it states in the code, the warrant pursuant to Article 621, that's for the outside dining, and then it says in it dealing with the actual use in, let me have the book.
Mr. Chairman, can I
No,
just...
no,
I'm going to object. I'm on the record. I need to
Gibbs,
object.
let the gentleman finish his presentation.
His presentation was before I spoke, I thought.
He has something, I want to hear what he has to say.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I'm trying to find a specific section of the code that speaks about the use being allowed in D3 through the warrant process. Section 3.
If you can't find it, if you want, take some time off. We'll open it up to the public and you can come back. Mr. Cook?
Okay.
All right, all right. I'm going to open it up to the public, 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, real quick, before you go to the public, I have a clarification question on this, on the initial application. In the charter, you mentioned the charter boat. Is this the second such warrant for a restaurant on the river with a charter rental? Did we not hear one, or is this the same one? But this is a separate one.
So, if I may, for clarification, what we have before you have a warrant to allow for the restaurant, commercial, retail use in the D3, and you have a warrant before you to allow for the outside dining. Subsequent to that warrant, you also have a waiver to allow for parking off-site. And if you get into that, you have this situation, this is adaptive use. The code allows in section 728B that you can, with an adaptive use, as the property is, it does not trigger any more parking. But as a provision, because of this use, we said to the applicant, you need to provide parking anyway. Ergo, he provided off-site parking to help accommodate the use. And he has redesigned Northwest 7th Avenue to add parking in that area at his own expense. along with introducing a waterfront path along Northwest 7 to allow access to the waterfront on that at his expense. And he's improving, as I stated in my presentation, that he's improving a dock slip area for boats at his expense, which is not on his property. And he's allowing for the police to have a slip at his expense, along with that. Now, Mr. Tucker is correct that the principal use on the property is a restaurant, which is allowed through the warrant process. Subsequent to that, in trying to maintain some element of marina use, he does have a charter service for yacht rentals, and he has another supplemental marina use in a building that is also on the site to maintain that.
The restaurant is allowed to be the principal use?
Yes, it is, through the warrant process.
Ms. Torrance?
Are there any dock slips there now?
Yes, there are several dock slips that exist on that site.
Does the city, with 12,000 square feet, the parking area that they're renting for $5,000 a month? A year?
Say,
The $5,000, is the city leasing 12,000 square feet on the water for $5,000 a year?
Well, he has a revocable license agreement that he's continuing that the previous owner...
To be a parking lot, not a park?
No, it's not a park. Right now, you have it as it is a right-of-way, it's a part of the street, which the previous owner used to use through the revocable license to do his forklifts and all that on that section. He's continuing that revocable license agreement through our Dream Department, and that would have to go to commission. As one of the conditions of the approval through the River Commission was that he has to get the warrant, and then he goes to the commission to get that revocable license. In that, he improved that right-of-way to allow for parking and landscaping and to allow for a waterfront access.
All right. So while you look into that, I'm going to open it up to the public. I'll give you time for rebuttal, Mr. Gibbs. Let everyone speak, and then you'll have time to rebuttal, okay? I want to hear what the public has got to say. Whoever's going to speak on the side end, please step up. 2 minutes. City? 2 minutes? You got 2 minutes, please don't be redundant. You can go to both sides.
Brett can go first.
River Commission.
Thank you. Good evening. Brett Bibeau, Managing Director of the Miami River Commission with offices located at 1407 Northwest 7th Street. During a public meeting held on January 23, 2017, the Miami River Commission considered this warrant application to allow a restaurant with outdoor seating at 961 and 971 Northwest 7th Street, which is zoned D3, and its designated land use is Port Miami River in the comprehensive plan. The Miami River Commission unanimously recommended denial of the subject warrant application for a restaurant in D3 marine industrial zoning based on the loss of the existing Anchor Marine boat yard, noise which would disrupt the surrounding low-density neighborhoods, inclusion of the city parcel without a current agreement, and an incomplete public river walk. Therefore, the Miami River Commission respectfully recommends granting this subject appeal and denying the warrant for a restaurant on this Middle River site. Your continued support for the Miami River District is appreciated.
Thank you. Sir?
My name is Richard Dubin. I've been in the 3630 Northwest North River Drive and City of Miami resident 4171 Woodridge Road. I've been in the commercial marine industry 35 years. I'm a past board member of the city's Waterfront Advisory Board, past president of the Miami River Marine Group, and recently appointed to the statewide Florida Freight Advisory Council. I won't go into all the details about how much we're opposed to this project, but I will add something that you might not be aware or doesn't get touched on much. I also own the property that was next to him many years back. In between us and Anchor Marine, there is 7th Avenue there, 7th Street, they call it. That is a property that the city is giving to him for $5,000 a year that should be a park. Irrelevant of whether we agree or disagree on the project, that is prime city property that should be a park for the residents.
We need to look into that. There is no reason that this should be changed from a commercial marine property into a restaurant. There's probably 7 or 10 boat slips. So far, I've heard him authorize that he's going to have 2 designated for some sort of marine-related activity. I don't know what they're going to do with the others, not use them. But we cannot give the city property away for a parking lot that should be a city park. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just real quick, a question for staff. Is there any way to see a site plan of the project? It's just difficult to visualize some of the things that are being said.
Forgive me, Mr. Collins, with expectation that you would be given a deferral based on the right of the code, I didn't bring the site plan with me, with it, and
It would just be helpful to understand as different comments are being made. Thank you. I'll pass this
it
on.
along. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Myra Jolie. We have been residing, me and my husband
And
have
your
a property
address?
on 978 Northwest North River Drive. I came here tonight just to let every one of you know that the reason you guys have been chosen to do this job is to put interest of the community above any other interest. And these are the neighbors that have to sleep in that community, and they work during the day. And having a restaurant across the river, blasting the music, just putting the interest of the special interest in front of the neighbors, that's not the interest of, that's not the reason we selected you guys. So I hope the right thing is done today, and we can go home knowing that you guys did the right thing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night, members of the board. My name is Roselvic Noguera, 3038 Northwest North River Drive, here on behalf of Antillean Marine. Antillean have been in the river for more than 54 years, and today is the largest maritime shipping company in the river. With 6 vessels and 3 towboats, Antillean offers weekly sailing to Haiti and Dominican Republic, transporting tons of cargoes every week. We generate about 200 full-time, long-term career jobs, no part-times, no temporary jobs. And also, we serve a lot of local clients, generating thousands of immediate jobs every year, making the growth of the city of Miami and the social and economic progress of its people possible. Antillean opposed this grant application for a restaurant nightclub in this marine industrial zone site because, like previous identical grant permits approved by the city, this will detrimentally impact the operations of the working river and the maritime industry. This permit is inconsistent with and undercuts the working waterfront protection stated in the local and federal regulations, circumvents the overall intent of the V3 Marine Industrial Zoning Code, and reduce the number of designated marine industrial waterfront sites today in the river. In addition, these restaurants and nightclubs with direct access to the water increase recreational boating on the river, and as consequence, increases the risk of our operations. We have been and will be in the river for many years. We are not planning on closing our doors in a few years and moving to another more fashionable area when the river will no longer be. We respectfully ask you to listen to the purpose and spirit of the law, preventing the approval
That's
of
2
this
minutes.
type of projects in areas reserved for the maritime industry. Please protect the maritime industry. We don't want to create a gentrification process. We need to take care of this today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Sir.
Yes, good evening. My name is Stephen Beffera. I'm a resident of Spring Garden, 978 Northwest North River Drive, number 7. The name of the condominium there is Spring Garden. The name of the neighborhood is Spring Garden. We have Riverview Landings is the condominium. I know some of my fellow residents are here tonight. Our property is located virtually directly across from Anchor Marine. I want you to know that I've been a resident there. I moved into Spring Garden in 1992. I was one of the first residents at the Riverview Landings condominium. It's an 8-unit condominium building. It's townhouses, where there's a garage down below, and then living quarters, the 2 stories above that. So it's very exposed to the river. We've enjoyed in Spring Garden a unique neighborhood. It is an oasis in an otherwise urban, sprawling region. I can think I speak for many in saying we're not against development of the river. I've always believed that the Miami River had great potential and felt that it was a wonderful asset that was underdeveloped in our community. And we encourage proper development of that area. But in this instance, I speak against this restaurant and bar because it's just not the right fit. We like a peaceful neighborhood. At night, in the industrial zone, things are quiet. People stop working. Do you see some tugboats going up and down from time to time? Sure. But you don't have folks out on a deck, within a couple hundred feet with music blaring. And not only that, the problem is going to be the boats rafting up. How do you police that? How do you police these big boats that are going to be rafting up to each other with unbelievably loud sound systems on them, disturbing our sleep on the 3rd floor of our condominium that we've enjoyed in this neighborhood for many years? And I urge you to consider
That's 2 minutes.
this and please vote in favor of our appeal and not this restaurant. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jenna Balf. I live on 700 Northwest North River Drive. I oppose the development of the Sea Spice for a couple reasons. I think that there's a time and there's a place for everything. Spring Gardens is a residential neighborhood, and it has been for a long time, which is why it's been designated a historic neighborhood. Marjorie Stoneman's Douglas house was once there and it burned down. It has a lot of importance. It's a special place. Building a nightclub across the river where sound carries marvelously well is a terrible idea. It's not the place. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Richard Bieber. I was here about 11 years ago before you about the property next door.
Your address, sir?
Pardon?
Address?
723 Northwest 9th Avenue. And then the old Miami News building lot directly next door to this property was proposing 2 27-story towers up there anyway. And it was rejected by you all. But it passed the city. But the point being is now they have, it's 700 units is being looked at to be going up, 698 next door to it. And at the previous time, our attorney had gotten the traffic study of the other attorney, and the intersection at 7th Street and Northwest 12th Avenue was an F-rated intersection. The street is not wide enough to carry the load that it will be carrying. There will also be a school and a design closed designer going up there on 12th Avenue on the other side of the 700 units that are right next to this supposed restaurant. It's too much noise. It's not, the infrastructure isn't there for this restaurant, and it shouldn't be. Besides the noise that it will produce on the river, across the river, the boats going to it, other places along the river like Sea Spice, which is further down, and what is zoned to be more for that type of activity, it just produces too much noise, and they even have fireworks off the boats. This is bad. This is not a good fit. This is not appropriate. It flies in the face of the intent of Miami 21 zoning. Please do not support it and reject the initial applicant's desire to have a restaurant there, and support our motion to not have it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Carol Boynton. I live at 978 Northwest North River Drive, Unit 6. I am considered by the City of Miami to be an abutting property owner. I am 150 feet across the river from the proposed project, as are other folks here from the same address. I'm a retired educator with over 49 years of service as a teacher and administrator in the public schools, colleges, and universities in the state of Florida. As such, I was held to a higher standard of conduct, moral and ethical conduct and behavior than the average citizen. And as a tax-paying citizen, I have always expected the same standard of moral and ethical behavior from my colleagues in local and state governmental service. I believe the warrant should not have been approved by staff. I believe sufficient attention to the spirit and intent of Miami 21 Code has not been paid. I believe the plan calls for this section of the river to be zoned for light marine industry. I believe a food service establishment with a bar and a DJ and removable walls to increase indoor and outdoor space does not meet the intent of preserving and enhancing light marine industry. I believe it is the city's responsibility to uphold the spirit and intent of the Miami 21 Code. Why have a code if it is not to be observed, and in
2
so
minutes.
doing bring damage and hardship to the citizens the code was intended to protect? The anticipated noise and light pollution from this project and from boats permitted to dock there reduces my property value
In conclusion?
and creates intrusion to my property. We are experiencing already the intrusion from Sea Spice and Kiki's a half a mile down the river. This proposed project is 150 feet from my front door. Please do the right thing. Please deny this warrant.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Thanks to everyone for listening to our pleas. My name is Dennis Fuller. I live at 700 Northwest North River Drive. I live directly across from the proposed location of this restaurant. Every night, I can hear the music from The Wharf, which is a new club a half mile east of us. The water carries, the sound carries excellent over the water. I mean, it's very loud, and that's a half mile away. I'm talking about something that I can see from my dining room table every single night. I don't think any of you would like to live with a nightclub restaurant outside of your dining room window every night, okay? Spring Garden is the oldest residential neighborhood left in Miami. It's an oasis. If you've never been there, it's a really beautiful place. It's like Narnia or something. I suggest you come and check it out because it's very special. And just, we want to keep it that way. We want to keep it quiet. We want to keep it peaceful. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Mario Cohen, and I reside at 978 Northwest North River Drive, Unit 1. I'm the president of a condo association, and on behalf of myself and the other 7 residents and spouses, I will ask you to please deny any change of venue or warrant that these people across our property, just 30 yards across, is requesting. Spring Gardens is really, like other people say, an oasis. We have the right of peaceful and quiet enjoyment of our lives after we put our day's work. We have some chairs in the back of the building where people sit and enjoy some drinks in the evening and quietly looking at the sunset and some boats passing by. A constant noise of music on a venue that is geared to millennials that want music and loud sound is not what Spring Gardens deserve. So I would ask you, please, to preserve our neighborhood by not granting the warrant to these people. Thank you so much.
Sir?
Good evening. Charlie Hand, 743 Northwest 7th Street Road. I'm a resident of Spring Garden for 18 years. I'm a harbor pilot in Port Miami for 20 years. I work, live, and recreate in and around the Miami River. I'm opposed to this restaurant for numerous reasons, one of which is I'm currently woken up regularly by the sound of the new restaurant club district that is growing along the Miami River. I live quite a distance from those restaurants, but the sound does emanate and it comes into my house and it fills my house at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. I also have numerous friends and neighbors that have very well-paying jobs associated with the marine industry, anchored to the river. If you take away these sites that the marine industrial operators have on the river and you allow these other uses to come in, they can't go anywhere else. They can only work here on the river. That's what we need to do, is to continue to provide the space for these operations to exist and provide well-paying jobs for these people. Thank you.
Ma'am, go ahead.
My name is Priscilla Greenfield Manning. I live at 901 Northwest North River Drive. I've lived in Spring Garden 30 years. I also own a townhome in Snug Harbor, which is directly across from this project. Spring Garden is a historic neighborhood, and many of us have worked tirelessly to preserve and protect our small, fragile neighborhood. Our tranquility and our property values are now being threatened by a nightclub masquerading as a restaurant. This restaurant is going to have a DJ, an outdoor deck, boats. It is not a restaurant. It's a nightclub that serves food. Restaurants do not blare out loud, throbbing music well into the night, impacting an entire neighborhood. A nightclub is incompatible with a residential area. The river is not that wide. There is no viable way that the noise emanating from this nightclub will not impact the entire neighborhood. We who live on the river already know the river is a transporter of sound. We hope that this plan for a restaurant will be denied. Enough is enough. We are tax-paying citizens who have worked to improve our neighborhood, and this will do nothing to help improve Spring Garden or the area. Thank you.
Good evening, Amanda Corkhand, resident of Spring Garden with address at 743 Northwest 7th Street Road. I echo the comments of my neighbors. You know, we are living the reality of a booming restaurant industry on the Miami River. We can hear it all the way up the Seabold Canal. So we do have these quality of life issues, but there's a legal issue with this warrant. It's true that if you go to the table in Miami 21 and you look at the D3 zoning, that you can get a restaurant by warrant in that district. However, the warrant still has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So you can have a D3 zoning with an underlying commercial land use designation and then get this type of warrant. However, in this case, it's an industrial land use designation. That land use designation is set aside for manufacturing, assembly, storage activities. Florida Statutes 163-3194 says all development orders shall be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and if a development order is not consistent with the comprehensive plan, it is subject to an independent challenge. In other words, the warrant in this case should not be approved because it is inconsistent with the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan. So we respectfully request that you would grant the appeal and understand the concerns of the neighbors. Thank you.
Where'd you get all that information, huh? All right. She used to be a city attorney, so, okay.
Hey everyone, my name is Daniela Alzuru. I live at 978 Northwest North River Drive as well, and I'm going to keep in consideration the fact that we were asked not to be redundant, so I won't be. I've been on my phone furiously typing a sort of revised statement, because what I've seen here tonight has been sort of appalling, in the fact that I didn't imagine that a civil servant would be such in strong defense of the application, so that's one point. The second thing is, I'm concerned moreover of what kind of neighboring business we would have if the man who applied really, I mean, I haven't seen one person defend his position. He is not even here. That shows a lack of respect. And it seems to me that this was a pretty orchestrated sort of plan of action, where our civil servant is also not prepared because he also was expecting this to be denied. I'm glad that at least one right thing was done today, where at least you all passed a motion to let us I'm actually dressed like this because I'm sick, so I really made an effort to be here, and I appreciate you all valuing our time. I'm a young professional. I work my butt off, and I love living in this quiet oasis. I had never visited it until I found my condo. I also enjoy restaurants, and I like going out. I'm a normal person, but this is not what it's going to be. We all know what the developments in, down the mile look like. Everyone has said it. It's a masquerade, and if it's approved, it's just another example, unfortunately, of how certain industries get, in a way, the advantage because of money and power. That's what it is. You can chalk it up to a million other things. It's not needed. It's not economically sound. We've already showed that for workforce purposes, the river is already meeting its need and can improve in a more responsible way. But what kind of neighbor are we going to have, and how are we going to trust that he's going to meet his end of the bargain when he is not even here to listen to us speak? Thank you for your consideration.
You're next, sir.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carlos Salas. I am the president of the Spring Garden Civic Association. I represent the entire Spring Garden Historic District. As you can see, we've made a lot of effort to make sure we came out here and share with you how much we oppose this project. I agree with everything that my attorney has said, Mr. Tucker Gibbs. But in addition to that, you have no idea the amount of emails, calls, people who have actually spoken to me who have shared their opposition with this project. In addition to that, Mr. Henry Greenberg has known for quite some time that this project, that today was the day. I do not even believe that he really has an attorney. He didn't even want to state the name of the person. He just murmured it. So I don't believe that that information is truthful. In addition to that, I am not sure why the Department of the Planning and Zoning Department, so many acronyms, sorry, but why are they defending this so much? We were in negotiations with this person, and while we were in negotiation, they went ahead and approved the warrant without even communicating with us. And then I've worked in marketing for over 10 years. I know a lot of business owners, a lot of restaurant owners, and they're passionate about their dream. When they're going to open a restaurant, they already have a vision. They know what it's going to be, what kind of food, who the chef they want, all that good stuff. This person completely disrespected me, told me, why do you care what kind of restaurant you want? Why do you want to know this information? He actually told me, I'm only doing this because Jacqueline Ellis and Derek Cook told me to do it, and the warrant's going to get approved anyways, and I don't care. I'm only here to give you a little bit of time. Do you think we deserve that? You guys should oppose this project. Our neighborhood does not deserve this. Our residents do not deserve this. And you can see here, we mean business. Thank you.
Hold the applauses, please. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Penelope Fisher. I'm sorry. I yelled so much for the marathon this weekend with my group that during Ramadan, I can hardly speak. I want to thank you for being here tonight and taking the time to step out and listen to us. The people behind me count just like you do. I do things scientifically. My entire life has been quality of life driven for those around me. I have served 51 years of caring for other people. 20 years ago, in July, I moved into Snug Harbor. I could, if I had an arm good enough, throw a baseball to the Anchor Marina. I have called the Anchor Marina some 10 times to get people off their property, vagrants. I have stopped the tree from being burned by heroin addicts that the police have stopped. How is he going to fix that across the river. We're all in a community for quality of life. Spring Garden is a peaceful place of families. We walk together, we play together, we celebrate life together. Our quality is different. I would want you all to do what I did. 2 Friday nights in a row, and just recently 1 Friday night with a group of us, took a car around the neighborhood at midnight. We drove down by what's called the wharf. People were almost on
2
our
minutes.
hood of our car. So sorry, I will go. I drove all around the whole thing. I had a driver, beautiful person that also believes what I'm saying. The quality of life was noise, alcoholic, drunken people staggering. That noise could be heard on South River Drive, North River Drive, all the way up past the Anchor Marina. Alcoholic behavior, sound. My life has been sent with ear, nose, and throat. If you want to talk sound, I'll get you facts. This is a quality of life. You're being asked to deny someone else's greed for power and money, taking away from the citizens of Miami. Next time I'll read you the poem about the Miami River that I love dearly. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Eileen Broughton. I live 951 Northwest 10th Court. I also own a townhouse on 980 Northwest North River Drive. I'm opposed to this change for this inappropriate use of the land. I've served my community in many ways, including serving on many boards over the years and honoring the Miami River and also assisting in ensuring the dredging of the river in that specific area. I feel I have contributed to my community and my city. I attended many, many, many meetings for Miami 21 to provide input into the plan. I feel this is an insult to me, and it makes me feel like a second-class citizen that all the work that was done to create planning and zoning documents can be so treated. In addition, this is a quality of life issue, so please do the right thing and approve our appeal. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Judith Paul. I live at 1000 Northwest North River Drive, a townhouse where I've lived since 1992, and I don't want to abuse your time with repetition. I'm just here to join with my neighbors to urge you not to approve this warrant for a misuse of the waterfront that would be very deleterious to our way of life. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Judith Gotti, and I live at 980 Northwest North River Drive. I'm the president.
Can you raise the mic?
I'm sorry? Hello, thank you. My name is Judith Gotti. I live at 980 Northwest North River Drive. I'm the president of the Homeowner Association at Snug Harbor. We are directly across the river, as you have heard earlier tonight, but I want you to take a look at that site plan because the lights that come from Sea Spice up the river, imagine that directly across the street from your house. The noise carrying across the river. Miami is a working river and has been since its existence. These beautiful freighters come down that river every day. The tugboats are pushing them back and forth. At this particular point in the river, it is very narrow, and that it is truly a dangerous situation when you can come any day now and you can see when recreational boats are coming along the river and the freighters are coming down the river, it's a very close pass. They have to actually pull all the way over to the side. Now, if those boat spaces at Anchor Marine are going to be used for recreational boats where they're tying up to one another, this creates a real hazard for the river industrial activity that's going on there. This is not an individual restaurant owner who loves the community and loves Miami and wants to be part of our community. This is a restaurant syndicate, is the name of the group. They have restaurants all around the world. You can pull up Liquue, L-I-Q-U-E. You can look at the videotapes that show the dancing girls with feathers in their hair and bikinis and hear the music blaring. That music will carry across the 150 feet, which is about 4 rooms this size, into the homes of us, those of us who live there. If a boat comes down the river now and that music is blaring and I am inside my house with the doors closed, I can hear that. If people are at Anchor Marine right now standing on that dock there and they are talking, 3 people talking, I can hear what they're saying.
2 minutes.
Because the sound carries across the river. Please be aware that we are neighbors just like you. And for once, we would like you to really take yourself to a place where it's not under your nose, so it's easy for you to look the other way. But think about it and care about this community the way that we do, and try to protect us, and do not allow this restaurant to be built there. There's other better uses for that property. Thank you.
Dr. Martin. Dr. Martin? Go ahead.
My name is Ernie Martin. I'm the president of the Neighborhood Association previously. I'm currently on the board, and I've previously been on this board. I live at 1000 North River Drive in Miami, and I live on the river, and I've always enjoyed living on the river and living in the area where the restaurant is proposed, and I'm strongly opposed to it. And I just want you to know that I do not approve of it, and I do not think it makes any sense for us to have a restaurant in an area where people live on the Miami River in a historic district. Thank you.
Go ahead.
You want to go ahead? Because I'm waiting for the video to come up.
Okay, great. My name is Grace Solaris, 60 Southwest 30th Road. I'm here tonight on behalf of Miami Neighborhoods United. MNU supports Spring Gardens Association's opposition to this project. We therefore request that you grant their appeal. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Whoever's going to speak, please step up. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening. My name is Reynaldo Irsula, 3038 Northwest North River Drive. I'm one of the boat captains who operate the tow boats up and down the river every day. I'm here on behalf of America's Marine and Miami River Towing. We oppose this application for a restaurant nightclub at this marine industrial zone site because this will be negative impact our operations. These restaurants and nightclubs with direct access to the water are causing an exponential increase of the recreational traffic. Every day, we deal with people operating boats and jet ski in dangerous and careless manners. Many of them do not know how to operate boats and don't know of navigation rules. We observe boats where we can see people consuming alcohol and totally ignoring our signals. Furthermore, this restaurant nightclub serve alcohol to clients that could be probably operating boats after visiting the place. In addition, we are facing a risk challenge when maneuvering through the river, and the clients of these restaurant nightclubs dock their boats in an unsafe manner, or boats are rafted in such a way to obstruct the traffic and make almost impossible the navigation. This action violates federal navigation rules. Our company has been contacting local agencies about this situation, and they have recognized that this is a real and increasing problem, but that the resources allocated for the safety of the security of the river are very limited. Please review the copy of the newspaper in article on the November 30th, 2017 that we provide to you. We respectfully ask you to protect the security and safety of the Miami River, preventing the approval of these restaurants and nightclubs with direct access to the water in the area reserved by the marine industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Next.
Thank you. My name is Harry Bender. I'm the appellant in this matter. I live at 980 Northwest North River Drive, directly across probably less than 100 feet from this establishment. People talk about it. I don't know if it's appropriate. We were going to have a slide presentation, but I do have a few photographs to give you a slight better idea. You can pass these around. But the first one is actually
We're going to need both of these. One's for this.
You need to speak into the microphone and record the call.
We'll do so. The first one is Snug Harbor, where we live. The last two units are my wife and I, who moved into the area in 1991. The next photograph is this facility directly across the river from us. And the third photograph is standing on my dock looking at this facility, which is approximately 90-some feet away. This is the narrowest part almost of the Miami River, and if you talk to the tugboat captains who bring the freighters up and down this river, they'll tell you this is one of the most difficult parts to get through. But more importantly, everything I have seen from Mr. Tucker Gibbs, our attorney, indicates that all the zoning ordinances, all the requirements of Miami 21, everything point to the fact that this is not a proper location for this restaurant v. nightclub, especially since they're targeting it to have open seating outside, blasting directly into our historical district. Why is this being done? All of a sudden, a few of our public servants on public planning and zoning determined that this is appropriate to grant a warrant. In other words, this is a way of getting around all the things the commission passed, all what the River Commission advised about for this river location.
2 minutes.
What is to be done on here? I can't imagine why this is being done, but in meeting, some of us in meeting Mr. Cook at some of the prior meetings, we said, look, we moved in here in 1991. We're making substantial investments in our property. Why would this be done? You're moving into an urban core. It apparently is the direction of a few people in planning and zoning what they think the river should be, contrary what everybody here has testified to, and it should not be done that way. A warrant is not the way to get around what all the people and the residents and the commissioners and all the people that passed those ordinances worked for. Lastly, there were some indications about noise. Our neighbors across the river that are on these boat loading, shippage, dock repair facilities are great neighbors. They don't start work until about 7 a.m., 7:30. They stop about 6:30, 7 o'clock. They're never there at night. And you get used to the little noise of a crane or of something else. We hear tugboats. It's a nice sound, actually, if you live on the river. That's what we moved to the river for back in 1991. My wife and I in 1995. The difference is, can you imagine 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, blaring music, nightclub sounds, outdoor restaurants, and all that noise? That's not the noise we have now. And that's not what we should have. We have a residence. The area we're in is light industrial residence. It is not a nightclub restaurant, and it should be this application, this warrant that's being progressed through planning and zoning for whatever reason they want to, should be denied and the appeal granted.
Thank you. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready. My name is Josh Trifaletti. I live at 1024 Northwest North River Drive, which is right along the river. So I am fronting the river right next to the Snug Harbor townhouse development. One of the conditions of this warrant is that the restaurant, and by the way, I think this can be loosely called a restaurant. This is more like a restaurant with a big emphasis on music and entertainment. We're supposed to be protected by the noise ordinance, which means they have to shut the music off by 11. I can't imagine having to deal with this level of noise even till 11 p.m. In the evening. So that to me right there is just unacceptable. I don't think that protects us, and I know what's going on down now at Sea Spice and Kiki on the river. You know, people are constantly calling about the noise. So yeah, the ordinance is there, but then the onus becomes on us. First of all, I don't know what's going to happen to our quality of life, our property values as a result of this, but I'd like to give you a little bit of taste of what we're in for if it does happen. Let's see. Looks like we're having technical difficulties, but what I can tell you is that the noise right now is already traveling, half a mile down from Sea Spice, Kiki on the River. Harry hears it at his house. We're talking at, 150 feet away from us. I mean, I just, what are we supposed to do? I mean, this business is being promoted, and in the process, our quality of life and our property values are being sacrificed. It just doesn't seem right. And like I said, even the noise ordinance that's been proposed as a condition, I don't think that does very little, if anything, to protect us.
Okay.
And one last thing, what's going on at Sea Spice and Kiki on the River now, the boats that tie up, it's not just the restaurant, it's the boats that tie up with these incredible sound systems, and the police have no control over the sound system on those boats. So even if you call, they can shut down the restaurant, and of course, again, the onus is on us every weekend to be calling, right? But they can't do anything about these yachts and that are going to be projecting the sound. And the river is a perfect conduit for carrying
Thank you,
sound.
sir. Ma'am, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Sapp. I live at 978 Northwest North River Drive. I'm vehemently opposed to the restaurant. The music will be unbearable, I believe. I agree with my neighbor Daniela in an effort to not be redundant, just the lack of respect shown by the owner. But I will say that if he doesn't follow the rules in terms of notifying you all, what makes you think he's going to follow any more rules going forward in everything that you all have requested and everything that he's supposed to do? So thank you. I'm against it.
Thank you. Yeah. Ma'am, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Ruth Greenfield. I live at 752 Northwest 7th Street Road, and probably the oldest resident in Spring Garden. Beginning with my grandparents, our family has lived in this stellar neighborhood for almost 100 years. It has been a utopian place, open to the economy of all, the race, the religion, all unreserved in this area. We are used to having people come and visit, but not invade us. And that's what seems to be happening now in this city. I want us very much to realize that the neighborhoods are always prominent in the lives of our people. That's where we get up in the morning. That's where we want to sleep at night peacefully. And I do, please, want to recommend no restaurant.
Okay. Sir, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Charles Greenfield.
You can pull up the mic.
Okay. I'm Charles Greenfield, and I'm following a tough act because that's my mother. So I have to be very careful. She will be 95 this year. My family, as she stated, has been in Spring Garden. My great-grandmother, Rebecca, actually raised chickens in her house where she lives today on 7th Street Road. Chickens are no longer there. The noise, of course, we've talked about. The noise travels across water. It's a perfect conduit. We can hear Spice all the time. The Anchor Marina never has caused a problem for us, and the light industrial section, as Harry indicated, respects us as we respect them. We like having that light industrial because we just love the idea of the boats and the fact it's part of Miami's history. I'd like to quickly show you what it's like to go to an event, and I hope it works. Spice at night. Here we are. This would be 90 feet away from us. And I think that's just the beginning of the evening.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Ma'am, go ahead.
My name is Kathy Gibson. I live at 1019 Northwest 11th Court. And when you go to bed tonight, think about what you want to be hearing, whether you like the peace and quiet to sleep to, because that's really kind of what it boils down to. The restaurant is really going to be a nightclub, and we're going to have a lot of noise, and it's going to come right across the neighborhood. Thank you.
Mr. Gibbs, 2 minutes for rebuttal. 2 minutes. I know you like to
No, I'm going to
be on stage, but tonight
I'm going to keep
you
it.
had
I'm going
others
to
on
keep it to the
stage.
point.
Yeah.
I have two issues. Number one is this whole issue of the parking area that the city is leasing for $5,000 a year. This illustrates the fact that this application is premature. I don't know why an application that doesn't have parking and the parking they say they have is speculative at best, because the city commission hasn't given them this lease, from what I understand. They have to approve it. So why should you all approve the use without knowing exactly how much parking it actually has? So for that reason, I would ask you to deny this. But also, the issue that was brought up about the principal use, that because of this chart in Article 4, Table 3, where it says food service establishment is allowed by warrant, somehow makes it a principal use. It doesn't, because nowhere does it say principal use on this chart, and nowhere does it say that a restaurant is a principal use. It says a restaurant is allowed if you have a warrant, and some of the standards for a warrant talk about how it comports with the neighborhood, how it relates to the neighborhood, how it fits in with the neighborhood, how it fits in with the industrial use, how it fits in with its immediate neighbors and proximate neighbors. So for that reason, just because it says it's allowed by warrant doesn't mean it's allowed as a matter of right. So when you all look at this, and you look at the neighborhood, and you look at the industrial use that's allowed here, and you look at this restaurant, nightclub, whatever it is, to see if that's really marine related and water related, and ask yourself, why is this necessary here? It's not a principal use, doesn't meet the warrant provisions, and it certainly doesn't meet the comprehensive plan, and Amanda's right. This is a serious issue. It is not permitted under your comprehensive plan, and it should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to close it up to the public, open it up to the board members. We're going to start off with Mr. Ziegler, and we're going to come on down the line. So, Mr. Ziegler, you're on stage. No comments?
I think what Mr. Gibbs said at the end is a real issue. Are warrants allowed by right or for some other reason? In fact, at the last board meeting I brought up, what is the balancing act that the staff goes through? Is protecting the neighborhoods on one hand and making better projects on the other. And it is a balancing act. I think some of you in the audience took unfair swipes at the planning and zoning staff, who work extremely hard and give us very good support. But their balancing act, I do agree with you. I think the neighborhoods, protecting the neighborhoods, should be given more weight when you're deciding whether a warrant is appropriate or not. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Mr. Althami?
Yes. Ignoring the point of an attorney that doesn't show and doesn't give any notice, and going to the next point, that has been mentioned here many times, that this is going to be a nightclub and open music in open spaces affecting quality of life of the neighborhood. I don't think the applicant needs an attorney to explain if this is not truth, that this is not a nightclub that is going to affect anything. You don't need an attorney for that. Now, after seeing how these clubs affect quality of life downtown, I believe we don't want to follow those steps that happen downtown when the ultra disturbs everybody. On top of that, there are other mega events that are being trying to be approved with great opposition from the community. I don't believe we should support this project and affect the quality of life and turn all these neighborhoods in entertainment districts. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Torrance?
I'd like to reserve my comments to be last, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Gutierrez?
Which part of the river is this? Is this upper, middle? I'm a little disappointed that a warrant was given when there were negotiations going on with the neighborhood association. I'm not sure if that's just lack of miscommunication or the status of that, because what Mr. Parrish has said, this board has for a long time been in support of, which is the impact to the neighborhood. It's not new, it's not a new concept. It's something that we as a team have tried to work on, whether it's staff or listening to you all. So that one is very concerning to me. The other one, I think that the point that was made that this is not consistent with the comp plan is also a key point in why is it that these things happen. And those are specific to what we do or not do. The one that does shock me is I think that we are a city that is undergoing a lot of changes, particularly in the river. Everybody's looking to the river. And I'm particularly concerned when we are here, concerned a lot with the things that happen in the Grove. I am also concerned as to what is happening with Spring Gardens, because they're coming at you from all sides. So this is just the beginning, really, as far as I can see. Without being a part of your community, I know it's a beautiful community, and I see what's coming. Why a 200, I don't know that I would have a problem with a restaurant, but a 230-seat restaurant is mind-boggling. We have seen what happens at the wharf. I know what happens at the wharf because I get stuck in traffic on Fridays and I can't get through. But the Wynwood Yards is successful because people around it right now, there's not a lot of neighbors. There's no condos immediately around it that I'm aware of. But I know the noise carries, and some residents are starting to complain over on Northeast 2nd Avenue, which is quite a ways from Wynwood Yards. And the reason I bring up Wynwood Yards is it seems that the wharf is a mini Wynwood Yard. It's just on the river. And there aren't that many restaurants, not that many residents currently around there. But this has Spring Gardens completely across the river, and like you all say, the noise carries. So I wouldn't be opposed to a restaurant. I am opposed to the size of this. I agree with the gentleman that spoke that while the city has also been very good about dotting their I's and crossing their T's, saying that the noise is according to Chapter 36 and that there will be no music between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., guess what? You're going to still get stuck with the noise. So this is a tough one, but I think that the big piece here is that it is not consistent with the comp plan, and that's all I have to say, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Actually, just on that, before I make my comment, I do have a question of staff. We heard both the attorney for the appellant and one of the commenters, who also happens to be an attorney, mentioned that this is not consistent with the comp plan. Can you address that directly?
Yes.
full disclosure, frankly, it is a heavy lift considering the location of the property and what the comp plan says as it relates to marine use for that area. And you could argue that it's an inconsistency based on that to some extent. So I hear that, and we had that discussion, frankly, in the office several times with my supervisor, Ms. Ellis. We discussed it. I mean, frankly, and all, we talked about even denying it as a thing. To address Mrs. Garcia's comment about us moving forward with the decision why negotiations were still going on, this had been in our office for more than a year. The applicant had been talking with the city manager, the mayor's office. So it got to the point that decision, and even though I was telling them you need to continue to talk with the community, try to come to some kind of détente about how you can move forward with this application, to the point that an edict was given that we need to make a decision and let the chips fall where they may.
I appreciate your honest answer. I also understand that the city is in an awkward position when it has to go back and forth on a warrant for 365 days or more and hasn't given the developer an answer. And to be on that side of things is unacceptable. And if any of you were in that position, you know, some of you may have at some point had to deal with that side of things. And it's a nightmare. And so, you know, at a certain point, you got to fish or cut bait, right? So that's what happened. But to hear you correctly, it is not entirely inaccurate to say that this is not consistent with the comp plan. So that's a huge issue, one that you could rest the entire denial upon. The other thing, obviously, is the neighborhood, the consideration of the neighborhood. The truth is, you know, and I think, you know, everyone here knows, on the board knows that my business is food and beverage. I think a lot of the people who are here today know that, based on the fact that I had to go through a similar process and go in front of the Miami River Commission. I think, though, that, you know, I asked a question about the charter rental on the second floor, and that is sort of there've been a few applications, at least since I've been on the board. I'm always in favor of food and beverage, but that sort of using these devices to sort of work around, and again, this isn't even consistent with the comp plan, and then on top of that, you're going to add this little device that really shouldn't even make much of a difference anyway, because charter rental isn't storage or assembly or one of the enumerated things that would make it fall, you know, even squeeze it into the comp plan if you wanted to loosely interpret. So I have a problem with that. Huge issue, and I think I brought it up first, but the $5,000 a year, and I understand they're calling it a revocable license. I think there's an issue with that because ultimately you could call it a revocable license. Sounds like a lease to me. If it's a lease, I think it has to go on the ballot. That's a whole other issue. It hasn't even really actually gone into effect. I don't know how the commission's going to get around that. A unanimous denial by the Miami River Commission, that's a big deal. But again, I mean, a restaurant here isn't even the issue. You know, it's the size, location, style, all those things that a warrant looks at where it just feels like the warrant. But again, I'm saying all this and it's just going to get appealed to the commission probably and whatever, but it all it needs to be said. I'd say it again. So anyway, that's mostly my list. And yeah, and also just what's the point of the River Commission? I mean, this is sort of some of the same, we just dealt with this last week, or 2 weeks ago, with Coconut Grove. You know, there's only so many times that the residents can come in front of us and say, look, you know, and to be fair to the board and to planning staff and to all the attorneys involved in interpreting this stuff, you know, it's usually more nuanced, right? I mean, the neighborhood associations and stuff have a good feeling. They're arming themselves with more information, getting counsel, getting a better, broader grasp of all the nuanced stuff that makes it sometimes more complicated than you all think it is for us to make these decisions. Like, oh, why can't it just be like this? But at a certain point, we also have to look at ourselves and say, how many times are these neighborhood associations, neighborhoods with good information going to come here and be turned away with, well, you know, it was already issued or whatever. It's like, what is the point of the Miami River Commission? What's the point of this board, you know, if we're not going to sort of write some of these off-course things? So those are all my comments. Thank you for indulging me.
No, sir. It's closed to the public. Mr. Ardillo, no comment. Mr. Collins?
No comment.
No comment. Ms. Torrance?
I moved to the Middle River 45 years ago, and while I guess that makes me a newcomer compared to Mrs. Greenfield and her family, it is my home, and it's a wonderful place to live. And when people started discovering the river, and it started to become more popular, the fact that we have the lower river, middle river, and upper river became so much more important to protect what we have. And this particular business is in the middle river, and it, in my opinion, doesn't belong there. And I would like to make a motion to grant the appeal.
Okay, give me one
Second.
Give me 1 second so I can make some comments. As far as I remember, we've had this struggle with the river. There's always been something, planning, city, you know, before all this boom started, when they were looking at it, they said, okay, the lower river, entertainment, middle river, we started seeing the condo boom. They wanted to see, all right, some condos. And then you had the maritime industry. And so you always, now you had those three components. As we are growing into the city, this river has been one of, you have the maritime with their interest, you have the neighbors with their interest, and now you're starting to see the entertainment with their interest. The comprehensive plan to me still is not clear, because once you get a zoning administrator, he interprets something of the future of the river. Then when he leaves, then the other one interprets the future of the river. So the way that I am able to gauge what happens is on a case-by-case situation, by seeing the facts in front of us in terms of, in this case, the neighbors. And that is the only thing I can go by, because I'm not clear on the comprehensive plan. I'm not clear on the decisions that are being made, and you have three different interests in the river. So it's going to be more complex in terms as we get more into this growth of this city. And it was like this years ago, and it continues to be like this now. So my decision is going to be based on the facts that I have here tonight, based on the outcry of the neighbors, you know. So the motion is by Ms. Torrance, second by Mr. Altabi. Roll call, please.
Ms. Melody Torrance?
Yes.
Mr. Andre Altalbi?
Yes.
Mr. Chris Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Adam Gerson?
Yes.
Ms. Betty Gutierrez?
Yes, I just, and again, because it is inconsistent with the comp plan.
Mr. Anthony Parrish?
Yes.
Mr. Manuel Vadillo?
Yes.
Mr. Aaron Ziegler?
Abstain.
Sorry, Mr. Ziegler, unless you have a conflict of interest, you're required by statute to vote.
Sorry, say again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Unless there's a conflict of interest, you are actually required by state statute to vote.
No.
Just to clarify, your vote is no.
Yes.
Mr. Juvenal Pena?
Everybody voted? Vote Mr. Valdivia? Yes. Okay, yes.
The motion to grant the appeal passes 8-1.
Next item?
I'm sorry, this can be appealed to the city commission within 15 days of rendering this decision, resolution.
Thank
Okay.
you all very much.
Thank you.